we are here with our very special guest, Christina Adams. She's an author, and her website, tell them again, Christina.
ChristinaAdamsAuthor.com, and you can reach me through there, or you can have the link to this show in my series, Autism and Beyond, if you click on it.
Which is lovely, and we so appreciate the fact that you did that. Christina's here with us today talking about her recent trip. She just got back from Cuba, of all places to go. Really, I'm excited for you that you went. What a wonderful opportunity. And because Autism and Beyond is Christina's life, autism, of course, exists in Cuba, and Christina began to see that very quickly. So tell us.
I did. Well, you know, when we, as family members travel, we never really leave autism behind. So I've just kind of tried to integrate it into my what life I have outside of it, thinking about it, whatever. So on vacation, of course, the little tiny group I was with, they were having their drinks and doing their things, but I'm like, I wonder what's going on here with the autism and special needs picture. So I started poking my head around the corners, and walking in Havana, I saw there's a handicap sign. But you don't see those in this city. This is not a place where you get handicap access. So I thought this might be that special school that I'd been asking about. So it turns out I poked my head in. They said you have to come back with government permission. Everything's government permission there. So I went back and got government permission, which was kind of a miracle. It took a lot of poking and prodding and annoying my travel companions, but I got it. So I went back, and I was able to meet the doctor who helps to run the place. So now this school, the first kind of part of this little discussion here is the Center for Rehabilitation and Integration for Pediatrics. So it started in, I believe, 1992, and it has it serves patients who are very mostly motor skill, physically impacted. Now, to me, what was interesting is you don't have cars there. You can't, as a parent, drive your child around. There's just buses. But these children that I saw, mostly young adults, were not in wheelchairs. I saw not a single wheelchair. They were in very large strollers in their adult bodies. And so they had to have a person help lift them out and carry them around. And that's tough stuff.
Yeah.
And I did notice that whatever their different disabilities were, which were very, very involved, in their physical body, it looked to me, I'm just guessing, but it looked to me like they did not have perhaps orthotics that would have maybe kind of changed their presentation of their ankles and their feet. They did not have probably a whole lot of therapy because their bodies were kind of shaped in a way that were now organic to their disability. So it's not really we don't see that here, I think, so much because we have early intervention and kind of things that shape it all the way up. But we have a clip about this. I interviewed a wonderful young man who has knowledge about it. So let's roll the clip if you don't mind.
There we go.
The Center for Rehabilitation of Children, Senen Casas Regueiros, is an institution that opened around 1992. Is financed by the Office of the Historian. And the whole idea of a place like that is to rehabilitate children. It was a place that we didn't have before 1992. So it was a huge problem for parents. They had to go almost 2 hours away to drop off their children and then go back to work. So it wasn't that profitable. It was very difficult. So students and parents had a huge problem. So what they did is that they finished that place, and nowadays they work on a method that I believe that is from Holland. The whole intention is to promote and activate the brain and motor skills. So it happens into 2 steps. The first one is a colorful room from which they use different colors, bright and strong colors, and they try to motivate their brains. They try to activate the cognitive functions for a few minutes, several times of a week. And then after they finish, the second step is a wild room. It's like a playground area where they try to motivate their motor skills. The whole idea of places like these ones is to be able to insert some of those children to a regular school, which sometimes happens, sometimes it doesn't. It happens on a very small percentage because those children are actually, they have many different motor skills problems, and sometimes it's very difficult, but we have been able to achieve that from happening. But the whole idea is to be able to insert the parents of those children to society. one, they can bring their children over there, and they don't have to go 2 hours away to bring their children in a special needs school. They can go to work, and then they can provide for their family. And then at 4 p.m. they can go back there and they can pick them up, and they can continue with their lives. That's the whole idea of keeping the society flowing here in the old town. That's what we're trying to do.
Fascinating.
I think that's something that we could take a hint from Cuba.
Yeah.
Integrate the parents and the children into society.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how it is with us. There's not a place under one roof where we can drop the kids off all day. They get speech therapy, playtime, physical therapy. They used to have psychological services at that school, but they've moved it out to the local hospitals and doctors that serve each community. But that to me is a tip that we could take.
Yeah.
I know that there's probably going to be all kinds of political, I want to pay for that, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. But to have a place that you can drop your child off, go to work, come back, integration to society.
Yeah.
That is something that we need.
Well, even it's it's in the news this week. We covered on the show yesterday the little boy who went to the Yankee game and apparently kicked the chair, and the guy turned around and
Yes.
said really abhorrent things.
Yes.
And apparently now that this story has been covered so much, people wrote in, I don't know whether it was on the New York Daily News or on one of the websites, they wrote in a bunch of comments and said, I don't understand, if these kids have sensory issues, why don't you just keep them home?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there has been a torrent of parents writing back and saying things like, because my child is a human being, and because if you're uncomfortable, maybe you should stay home.
No, I like that one.
If it makes you uncomfortable when our kids need to express themselves, then perhaps you're the one who needs to be kept at home. So it is interesting how backwards sometimes our supposedly developed society can be about differently abled people.
I think it's the nature, but our better nature is the one that addresses the least among us and their families. Like, you're making me remember that when my mother grew up, she remembered there was a girl who was always locked in a room in the house, and the whole family had to keep her in. And occasionally she would get out and run through the streets of that little town, run, and everybody would have to catch her in a big uproar. And it made me sad years later when I realized, so that girl had
she was one of our kids.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And under
And
lock
so that's
and
what
key.
people want. They want them locked in a room.
Yeah.
Guess what? We're not going to stay locked in a room. We're citizens
That's
as
right.
well.
That's right.
So I think that was kind of a nice viewpoint. And then what else I kept doing in order to keep finding out, like, what is this society doing if they have autistic kids here and how many they have. So then the hunt continued, and I was able to track down the fact that there's at least 2 autism schools in the country. And I actually got an interview with one of the people that run the autism school, one of the autism schools outside of Havana. I actually could have gone there, but I didn't have time. I had to leave, but I was invited, so I wish I had done that. So what do we do with autism in Cuba? How much is there? There's all kinds of questions because they are very removed from the world. Just as background, they do not have the access to the internet that we do. They do not have those kind of things. It's a very controlled communication in the society. So anything they do, like they still have a phone book there, they still have to do things, as we did a few years ago here in this country. But I'm told that just to identify children with autism, there are doctors that will kind of do child find, and there's even such a thing, can you believe this, where child psychologists go out every month to a school and see if there are children that need their services.
So the typical school, they go to the typical school and see if they can identify children that need more services because they might be on the spectrum.
Yeah, I think so. But then also they find them so early that I was told that an age of diagnosis is around 18 months.
Wow.
Right, so they must be catching them also through, every neighborhood has their own hospitals and doctors because healthcare is free in Cuba. So everyone has access to neighborhood-based services. So that's probably a method too, and hospitals as well. So if you'd like, we could roll my translated clip of the interview that I did with the
Yes.
autism school professional.
Let's take a listen.
What age, how many años
Dice
is
que
the child when they are
cuántos-
generally diagnosed?
¿Cuántos años tiene más o menos el niño cuando lo diagnostican con el autismo?
Lo hemos tenido con 18 meses.
18 months.
Okay, so and who catches it? The
18
family
months.
doctoras around here? The family doctor?
La doctora que lo identifica es una psicóloga de niños, ¿verdad?
Una psiquiatra infantil.
Una psiquiatra. It's a children's psychiatry. She's the
Okay.
one that identifies the children.
Okay, so if the family has a concern or the local
Si la
doctor has a
familia tiene una
concern,
duda
then they
o alguien
refer
tiene una
to the
duda,
psychiatrist?
se le remite como tal a la psiquiatra, ¿verdad? El médico de la familia.
Sí, a ver, la psiquiatra infantil radica en los hospitales y en los policlínicos de la comunidad.
They work in the hospitals and the small hospitals we have in each town.
Yes, yes. Now,
Igual asiste una psiquiatra infantil a la escuela todos los meses.
And each month, each school has a children's psychiatry that goes to the school monthly to
Oh.
evaluate children that might have some kind of like a situation
yes,
similar to autism.
you can tell her we have that too. It's called child
Dice que ella
find.
también lo tiene y se llama como un método de encontrar al niño.
Yeah, child find. Yeah.
No, aquí lo que tenemos es la comisión de apoyo al diagnóstico donde participa también la psiquiatra infantil. Es un colectivo que está para evaluar al niño en diferentes momentos del curso escolar.
Yeah, they also have a group of doctors, like a commission, that evaluates the children in case if they need to go to this kind of school or not.
Okay. So is any treatment, is all treatment educational?
Dice que si todo el tratamiento es educacional.
Sí.
Sí,
Todo
Okay.
por aquí.
sí.
Do
Y es
they,
gratuito.
And it's all for free.
oh, it's all for free.
Amazing. Amazing that you got this information. And I want to point out that these interviews weren't, this was you asking people questions.
Yeah.
So it's not as if, a government official came to say, okay, well, this is what it is. This was you genuinely asking people, them genuinely giving you an answer.
Yes, that's what it is. And so when you're doing things like this, I'm only getting a glimpse at a country, but I think it was quite an upfront glimpse because I asked, and not a lot of people ask these kind of things. So they actually are very proud of what they're doing.
Am I like completely in left field? I think they should be proud of what they're doing. To be able to, that the average age of being able to diagnose is 18 months, and you already have in place where somebody is going out to the schools to identify kids to be able to. I mean, why don't we have that here?
Exactly. So those are some good questions. We have Child Find here, but it's only activated if the preschool asks
Yeah.
somebody to come, and then you know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
Parents don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to take responsibility. It's very difficult. So I went on to ask a couple other things, and living in California a long time, I don't really speak Spanish, but I have a little bit of Spanglish, so shall we call it. So that's my kind of Spanglishy throwing it in things. So I asked kind of what methods do they use, and I also asked all the curious things like, how many children do you have? So perhaps if we have one of those clips, how many children do you have, or what methods do you use? Let's look at that one next.
Okay, you got that.
What do they think the rate is? Like how many, out of how many
Dice que
children do they feel is
cuántos
autistic in the
niños
population?
en la población total de Cuba, ¿cuál es el porciento más o menos de niños que
A ver,
tienen
en la
autismo?
población total no lo tengo. Es decir, como estadística no lo tenemos aún. Por ejemplo, en la escuela tenemos 78 niños.
They have
en la
78
escuela.
children in that school. She doesn't really have the amount of children in the entire country,
Yeah.
but from the first childhood, like from 1 to 5,
Yeah.
they have 78 children.
78, and they come
Fuera
from.
de la escuela
And outside the school,
tenemos 65 en la primera infancia y solo en la provincia de La Habana.
65 from the province of Havana,
Uh-huh.
and from that first childhood.
Oh.
From 1 to 5.
Okay, so they have 78 in the school.
78 at school,
And
and
then-
then more than 60 outside of the school.
Outside of the school. And then are we talking Havana here? Or
Havana, it's just Havana.
Okay, so this is all just Havana.
Just Havana.
Okay.
Kind of amazing.
Yes, and they also have the age 7 to 21 years old. So they will go all the way up, kind of like our IEP system from the sound of it. Now, the school uses a resident, like a national curriculum, and they do try to adapt the program to each child. So that sounds rather individualistic too, kind of resembles what we do. Now, I said, do you have residential placements if some children are too hard to take care of? And they said, yeah, they have psychology centers, but that's the minority of children with autism, luckily, like us. Now, I did find out that there supposedly is another school in another part of the country that I was able to see online they had about 30 students. So if we extrapolate that they have 200 plus students identified in Cuba, that's not very many. Now, I actually did ask a little bit about their opinion on what they do with the students that they have, and then also, if we have time, we can run on what her opinion is on the occurrence of autism.
Okay.
So why don't we ask, let's talk about what teaching methods they do.
Okay.
They have many different theses and work for different programs of communication.
Okay, do they have
Dice que
speech
si
therapy?
tienen terapia del habla.
A ver, lo que trabajamos es lectura global y habla asignada.
Yeah.
Lo que es el lenguaje.
Okay.
Is included in that speaking therapy that I was telling you
Okay, and then if the child is nonverbal, does not
Dice que si
speak,
el niño no habla, que no puede hablar todavía,
then how do they?
it's called speaking with nothing. It's called like that in Spanish. It's like speaking without speaking.
Right. Okay. So, and is that? Do they teach?
Ella pregunta que ese
Do
tipo
they
de
point
terapia,
at letterboard, or
¿cómo
they
utilizan?
have?
Apuntan a diferentes like, como símbolos o algo y utilizan eso para hablar.
A ver, utilizamos los signos. Es
They
decir,
use
vemos
symbols.
las preferencias del
They see the
niño
preferences of the child. Uh-huh.
y
Yeah.
lo hacemos en forma de signo acompañado de la palabra.
And then using symbols,
Yes.
they actually relate symbols to the word, and then they can actually associate that symbol to the
Yes.
word, and then they use that to communicate.
Yeah, we call that PECS,
ellos
Picture
lo conocen como PECS,
Exchange Communication
que es
System.
como PECS.
Nosotros conocemos el PEX como
They know
el
it. They
intercambio
know
de
it.
imágenes.
Oh, good.
They know that as an interchange of images.
Oh, very good.
So at the very least, an iconic communication system where they're pointing to and exchanging wonderful, speaking without speaking.
Yes, and they also use the teach method.
Yeah.
Which was emerged out of North Carolina, and I'd always construed as kind of more of a classroom-based system, but they use teach. They have speech therapy, and then they also have things like equine therapy, and they go to the aquarium, and they do all these outings. And I think one of the important things is they told me that they work with the families and the siblings and even the grandparents to try to get their understanding of autism changed.
Which I would think would be important because we know that the family structure is really tight.
Yeah.
That's part of their the social structure is built there, and so to change it so that it's a more positive thing I would think it would be critical.
Yes, and as we all know, it's a family upheaval when you have a kid with autism.
Oh, yeah.
Did you spank him hard enough, or why don't you do better parenting, or you know how that goes.
Right. Accusations from all around people who don't know what they're talking about.
All around. So I think it's very nice. I actually asked her, do people blame themselves, or like what's the thought? And she said initially that they do, but that after they learn about the condition and things like that they don't. So it's nice that they have awareness of those dynamics.
Absolutely. Now you said there was one more clip.
There is one more clip, so let's hear about that. Yes,
on
I want.
diet.
That's the big question. Do they do diet? Do they do what we do?
Let's hear.
Now, ask her if
Ella me pregunta ahora que
any parents ask them
si
to do
algún
special diet,
padre que le
or
pide que hagan una dieta específica
medicine or
o
natural
alguna medicina
herbs.
especial o por ejemplo alguna medicina verde.
A ver, mira, nuestros niños toman muchos medicamentos.
They take
pero
many
no el
different pills.
100% lo toman.
But not 100% of them take pills.
Yeah. So are they mostly pharmaceutical medication from the doctor?
La medicina que toman principalmente son pastillas, algo que le receta el doctor o alguna medicina verde.
A ver, ellos toman, la mayoría toma la carbamazepina, otros toman tiroidina, es decir, la risperidona, ellos toman
Siperidona,
diferentes
yeah.
medicamentos.
They take different medicine and most of them are actually prescribed by the doctors.
Prescribed by the doctors, yeah.
A
Now,
ver,
do
no a todos les asienta.
Not all of them actually are treated with the same medicine. It actually have different effects on all of them.
Yes.
So it doesn't work the same way in all of them.
right, of course.
Sí,
So
a cada niño se le pone un tratamiento, es decir,
Each
si es
child has a
necesario.
treatment
Hay niños
if
que
they
no
need
toman
it.
ningún medicamento.
And there's some of them that do not take any medicine.
right. So
Entonces,
yeah.
si
So
el niño no
So
le
if the
va
children
bien con el medicamento,
is
se
not
lo
doing okay
cambian
with the
y
medicine,
así
they change it
sucesivamente.
and they try to apply a different
yes,
prescription.
that sounds very good.
Dice que suena muy bien, que es muy buen trabajo que
Muy
están
bien, muy
haciendo.
bien.
A ver, además, muchos tienen una dieta libre de gluten y caseína también.
And all of them have very specific diet without gluten and many other things that can actually harm them.
Pero ya esta parte sí es algo clínico.
Ya se puso lo más contenta cuando le mencioné lo de la dieta.
Because that's mucho popular
Dice que es muy popular
on parents.
por los padres, lo piden como tal afuera en los Estados Unidos.
So,
¿Qué pasa? Que no con el 100% resulta.
It doesn't work with the 100%. There's
Yeah.
other children that doesn't work,
Right.
but with some actually it works.
yes. So do they take away gluten or they take away dairy, like milk and butter?
I think both. She mentioned both.
It's called casein free.
That's right. She mentioned both gluten and casein free.
She did.
Yeah.
Okay. Does she feel that the kids do better that way?
Some of them, she says.
She says yes.
Some of them, yeah.
All right. Okay. Good.
It would be easy to have had the preconceived notion that they were going to be behind.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That a low tech country like they are still has managed to do what they've done.
Yeah.
And I also think it's fascinating that being there and seeing how there's so little access to the internet, like so little. People go to parks and wave their phones around at night to try to catch something, or they get an hour to go to a cafe. They do gluten-free, casein-free diet.
Amazing.
Amazing, hmm? Parents will do anything. And I actually asked, do people ask about stem cells or IVIG? And they said very few. They are working on some projects like that. They may have some clinical trials, but it takes a lot of money and it's far away. So they're looking at some things.
Fascinating. So we got 2 minutes. You give us an overall, Christina.
I would say that the Cuban people were wonderful people. The Havana was very safe. People don't bother you there a lot too. You know, when you go to other countries, sometimes, you know, you can't blame them because they economically stressed, but a lot of times they, you know, try to harass you and trick you and bug you. The Cuban people were very respectful, very, very nice, and they were a lovely people, and my heart goes out to them. And if you have, you know, an interest in certain aspects of going to Cuba, the food was good and all that, then, you know, you might want to just do it. And if you don't, then at least now you know a little bit about behind the scenes.
Absolutely. You've got some stuff coming up. Tell us what you're up to.
I do. Right now I'm busy planning my trip to India because I'm going to be speaking at the Marwar Camel Festival in Rajasthan.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
Can you even? So it's November 3 through 5 in Sadri in the Pali district in Rajasthan. If you've ever wanted to go to India and you want people to, your peeps to be there, your autism peeps, come there. And I'm going to be talking about autism, camel milk, and all things to do with being happy and getting your family up and running.
Amazing.
So,
and again, your website?
ChristinaAdamsAuthor.com. I'm also on Facebook. Christina Adams, author, autism advocate, or something like that. You can find me, but you cannot miss me. If you write my name in on the internet and autism, it will pop up. So feel free to get in touch, and if you want to come and hang out in India, let's do it.
And read some of the things that Christina has written, whether it's that you read A Real Boy or you read about camel milk or read about housing or any of the million other things that you talk about. She's a wonder. So definitely,
You're the wonder.
I know that for sure that that's not the case, that in fact it's the way I said it. Always eternally grateful to you. You know, I consider you one of my spiritual guides. When I think about where would I be if I hadn't had your book put in my hands, I don't know. So I'm so always grateful to you.
Thank you, Shannon, and Autism Live.